Hello everybody, this is Tim here again, here with another review. I just watched the new Chucky film, Cult of Chucky. I figured I'd go ahead and do a review for that. Now, Cult of Chucky stars, of course, Brad Dourif back as the voice of Chucky. Now, it picks up after Curse of Chucky. If you've seen Curse of Chucky, you know about the bonus scene at the end that had Andy blowing Chucky's head off or whatever. In this film, it's really funny, the start of it is, because you got Andy again, and he keeps going home at night and torturing Chucky's head, which is hilarious. Oh yeah, by the way, there's going to be major spoilers in this review, so if you don't want to know what happens in the movie, don't watch the review. He tortures Chucky's head, and he's like sitting there smoking a joint after his date like blew him off, and Chucky's like, "Oh, so she blowed you off or whatever," and he's like, "Give me a hit at that," and he like gives Chucky's head some weed or whatever. He starts smoking the joint, and he like bites at Andy, like lunges at him. It's really funny. Anytime Andy is on screen in this movie, Alex Vincent is golden. At the beginning, he's kind of wishy-washy in his acting, but once the movie gets settled in, he was good. I enjoyed him, and he just tortures Chucky's head all the time. It's hilarious. And he wants to get to the asylum where Nika is at now. And what I loved about this movie is it has, at the beginning, when it first started out, it had a really weak like shot of the moon or whatever, and I was like, oh, is this movie going to be low-budget crap? But no. Once it gets into like the asylum or whatever and everything, it's shot really well. Dom Mancini does a really good job here shooting scenes that just really just really beautiful shot scenes. He's improved as a director since Seed of Chucky majorly. And you get to the asylum, and Chucky, of course, is the guy there like bought a Chucky doll off eBay or something like that. He has one, and he wants to help make the people that's in the asylum deal with their fears or whatever, and of course help Nika. And they basically think that she has schizophrenia, and that it was an alternate personality that she became and killed her family members or whatever. You find out the little girl Alice from the last movie was killed or whatever, or died, and that Chucky had spent some time in his body killing people, or in her body killing people, and that basically she's dead. But at the end of the movie, it hints that her soul is inside of the Tiffany doll, because it starts laughing when human Jennifer Tilly starts talking about Tiffany. She has the Tiffany doll in the back of her vehicle, and it starts laughing at the end of the movie. And they imply that Alice is inside of the Tiffany doll's body now, and that she's a killer now or whatever. That she's a doll now too. Which is really weird. I guess they did that because that way they won't have to bring the little girl back for the next movie or whatever if they decide to. Well, I guess they did that so they don't have to keep bringing the girl back for each movie or whatever. But anyway, that was interesting. But you get inside the asylum, and you meet all these multiple different characters. There's this one dude that has multiple personality disorder. He has his name's like Multiple Malcolm or whatever. He was alright. Him and Nika like screw the moment they meet each other, which is kind of weird. It feels out of place. Doesn't feel like her character would do that. The doctor in the movie is like molesting her or whatever, but he's drugging her so she doesn't remember. You get a really funny scene where like Chucky like knocks the dude out, and Chucky's like, well, I don't know if I should kill this guy or be taking notes. And they say, I'm sick. Brad Dourif's performance in this movie is great. Hands down, best thing about the movie is Brad Dourif. When he's on screen, his line delivery and Curse I thought was good, but sometimes he'd sound a little off, like he wasn't really into it as much. Here, he is great in this movie. He is great. You find out in the movie, basically, that there's multiple Chuckies, and that, and this is one problem with the movie, is the movie just kind of glosses over how Chucky's able to do this now. Chucky makes a crack about it. He's like, I learned a new spell on Voodoo for Dummies on Google or whatever. And it's like, okay. It's like, at that, when you say something like that, the filmmakers clearly don't care how Chucky's doing this. They just want to come with an explanation to do something fun and original with the character. Basically, he's in the asylum, and there's multiple dolls that keep getting delivered, and he transfers his soul into each one, and it's like, goes with the title Cult of Chucky, and they're running around killing people. Andy needs to get into the asylum. Whenever Andy is on screen, it's a lot of fun. He gets to the asylum, and he walks up to the security guard in the front of there, and he's like, I need to see Nika. And the guard's like, no, and he's like, well, commit me. And he's like, get out of here. And then Andy just like punches his damn brains out, and he gets locked up in the cell. It's hilarious. And so eventually, when the three Chuckies are all in the same room, and you find out there's multiple Chuckies, that they're all alive and all voiced by Brad Dourif, it is friggin' hilarious. Because they're all talking in Brad Dourif's voice, and they're all arguing. It's like, I look good. No, you look good. It's pretty hilarious comedy, and one of them says, man, why did they cancel that show Hannibal? That was a great show. Some funny bits here, really hilarious. At the end of the movie, the multiple personality guy or whatever, he thinks that he is Charles Lee Ray, the Chucky. He thinks he is the killer doll or whatever. because Chucky like talked to him and convinced him to have that as one of his personalities or something like that. That's when it gets a little weird. That could have been delved into more. But he ends up killing one of the nurses or whatever, and it's like they're wanting to frame him for the murders. Basically, at the end of the movie, it's what it kind of sets up as. And then one of the other Chuckies like drills a drill into the side of his head or whatever to kill him, which was kind of funny. At the end of the movie, Chucky switches bodies with Nika, and he takes over her body. So, and then one of the Chucky dolls is killed by Andy at the end of the movie, and another Chucky doll that killed the Multiple Malcolm guy is still alive, and it just goes back into Barbie mode at the end of it, acting like, it's not possessed or anything when other security guards start showing up at the end of the movie. Basically, you get to the climax, and, before I jump to the climax, there's a couple good kills in this movie. There's this one chick that's like tied up, and she, cause Chucky bit her, and she's trying to tell everybody that Chucky's alive. And one thing that's neat about this movie is they're mental patients, and they keep trying to say Chucky's alive, but nobody believes them. There's just really cool shots in the movie where there's this woman's like laying down this gurney, and she's looking up to this through this window or whatever, glass ceiling, and you can see snow coming down. It's like really beautifully shot by Don Mancini. And Chucky walks in there, and he has an air compressor can, and he's like, "Compressor? What does this mean?" He looks at the woman, and he's like, "Seriously, I don't know." Like I said, Brad Dourif gets some really funny lines. They really beefed up Brad Dourif's Chucky lines in this movie. They're a lot better. The jokes hit better here than in Curse. And he busts it, and it flies to the top of the window and breaks it, and the glass just like falls down on the chick and cuts her head off. And this other girl or whatever who killed her own baby, Chucky pretends to be her child or whatever and tricks her, and he reaches into her mouth and pulls out like her intestines or tongue or something like that out of her mouth in a really cool, gory fashion. That was great. And there's this one orderly guy that shows up at the end of it or whatever, and when the three Chuckies are all in the same room with Nika, and Nika's like hollering at him like, "Run!" And then this is the best death in the movie. The three Chuckies, all three run at the dude, and the effects are good. This is a direct-to-video movie, and the effects are better in this movie than most of the scenes that Chucky was animated in the Seed. It blows my mind. The effects in the direct-to-DVD movie are better than some of the effects in Seed of Chucky. I don't get that shit. But anyway, all three Chuckies attack him at the same time. They're cutting on him and everything, and one of them's drilling him, and the other one's stabbing him, and one of them slices his guts open, and then hilarious afterwards because they're all like, "Did you see his face?" And he's like, "Yeah, I cut him good." Another one's like, "Yeah, I drilled him good." And it's hilarious just the shit they're saying. And Brad Dourif just delivers it perfectly, the lines perfectly. It's hilarious. And then Nika, he switches bodies with Nika, and then they're all like, "Which one of us is going to kill Andy?" And this one's like, and one of them looks at the other one, and he's like, "Well, you did this today. You shouldn't do it. You haven't earned it." And then this one Chucky doll that got delivered there last had his hair cut by Andy, and you find out it was Andy was the one that delivered him there. And his hair is cut, and he's like, "Look at my hair. I deserve to kill Andy. Look what he did to my hair." And they're like, "Yeah, you're right. You look like shit. You do it." It was hilarious, and he goes in there to kill Andy, and he thinks he's got the drop on him. He runs up to him, stabs him in the leg. Andy grabs him and friggin' slings him against the wall and shoves his hand through his guts and pulls out a friggin' pistol that, since he sent the doll, he planted a gun inside of the doll's body. I thought that was a cool twist. I like that. That was cool. Andy pulls the gun out and just starts blasting the little piece of shit away, and then crushes his head. That was awesome. Anytime Andy is on screen when he's battling Chucky, he is awesome. Because they make him this character into like a badass, and whenever he's fighting Chucky, he like kicks Chucky's ass. It was great. That's one of the problems with this movie. This movie starts out with Andy, and then it delves into Nika's story. And Nika's story is fine and it's cool, and you get some beautiful shots of the asylum and stuff like that by Don Mancini. But then when Andy's not on screen, you can feel a level of energy in the film just kind of dissipate a little bit. You can feel part of the fun is gone. When they get around to the next movie, Andy needs to be in the whole film. He just needs to be the star in the next film. If Andy would have been the star in this film, this would have been probably my second favorite Child's Play movie had Andy been the star, because he could have really made this something if he had been the main star. Another thing, Jennifer Tilly is in the movie. I'm getting a little tired of her Jennifer Tilly stick, although she does have some good lines and she is funny. At the end of it, when Brad Dourif walks out inside Nika's body or whatever, they're like getting in the vehicle together, and that's when you get the scene where Jennifer Tilly's like, "I'm kind of Miss Alice," and Brad Dourif inside Nika's body, he's like, "F that kid," and they're laughing about it. And then in the back you see the Tiffany doll laughing, implying that they put Alice's soul inside the Tiffany doll. Yeah, and they're kind of treating her like their kid or something. You know, she's inside the Tiffany doll. And then at the end of the movie, Andy turns around and Nika's standing at the door, and he knows that she's been possessed, and he's got the gun on her, and she's like, well, Chucky's like, if you kill me, you kill her, or whatever. So I guess they're kind of setting it up to where in the next movie, Andy might be able to save her, and she'll be able to get her body back, or whatever, which, I don't know how that's going to work, but I'll have to wait and see. Another problem with this movie is it leaves off on a cliffhanger. And Chucky's just trying to escape Anika's body real quick, so he just slams the door when the other, like, security guards are coming after him. He just slams Andy's door, locks him in there, and he takes off, and he gets away with Tiffany. And so Andy's just left locked up in the room. He can easily get out. He has a pistol, and he has more bullets, I believe. So he could easily get out. Sooner or later, an orderly's going to have to open the door. He could easily just hold him at gunpoint and get the hell out of there. But anyway, and so they drive off at the end. Nika and Tiffany do, and that's when the film ends. It ends on a cliffhanger, and if you stay after the credits, you get a bonus scene where Kyle shows up, and Chucky's like, oh shit, and Kyle shows up, and she's like, Andy sent me, and she's going to start, like, vaporizing his ass and torturing him for information. And it's the Chucky head from the beginning of the movie that Andy has left over from the Curse movie where he shotgunned Chucky in the face, which is hilarious to me. Now she's going to torture the head for information on, like, where Andy's at or whatever, or and how to save Nika and shit. So basically it sets up for the next movie to be a team movie with Andy and Kyle and Jennifer Tilly and Chucky. Obviously, Chucky's not going to stay in Nika's body. He's going to end up leaving her body and going into somebody else's body. And of course, so I guess it's going to be up to Andy and Kyle to save Nika or whatever, which is interesting. That can work for a sequel. That can work. I do think they should wrap it up in the next movie. They need to wrap up this story plot line, kill Chucky off for good in the next movie, because it'll be the 8th movie. They probably should stop at 8. Pretty sure it'll be 8. Yeah, it'll be the 8th movie. They should probably stop at 8. All in all, I'd give this movie 3.5 stars. It's a pretty good movie. There's some logic problems in it with the voodoo not being explained, and the movie is a little bit overlong. Some of this movie could have been chopped out. Another problem with the movie is it tries to be, like, real psychedelic sometimes, to be like a psychological type Chucky movie. Adds some of those elements in it. It gets a little bit too wacky. Like, there's a scene where Nika has a nightmare and there's like a giant 6-foot Chucky or whatever standing over top of her. That's when the movie gets a little bit too silly. But other than that, this is a really enjoyable movie. I've had a pretty good year for horror this year. Leatherface was good, and this Chucky movie is even slightly better. I gave Leatherface 3 stars. I'd give this 3.5 stars. This is my 3rd favorite Chucky film. Child's Play 1 is my favorite. Then Bride of Chucky, because it did something different, because I felt 2 and 3 were just kind of repeating part 1. Bride of Chucky would be my 2nd favorite. This would be my 3rd favorite Chucky movie. When the multiple Chucky dolls are on screen together, they are friggin' hilarious. Brad Dourif is great doing that friggin' voice. After this movie would be part 2, Child's Play 2. It repeats the original too much, but the climax is a blast in the Toy Factory. After Child's Play 2, I would probably put Curse of Chucky. Curse of Chucky, because it's a good haunted house, like gothic thriller in that kind of vein. After Curse of Chucky, I would say Child's Play 3, which is a okay standard repeat of the first movie Chucky film at a military facility or whatever. It's okay. And then last is Seed of Chucky. I hate Seed of Chucky. Seed of Chucky sucks. Yeah, all in all, yeah, this is a pretty good movie, and I highly recommend it to anybody who's a Chucky fan. Don Mancini has been doing great wonders with resurrecting this series and totally wiping away the shit stain that was Seed. He's just been doing great stuff with this franchise. These last 2 movies, this one improved on Curse, and I feel the next movie, if it keeps going in this streak, Don Mancini's next Chucky film should be great. He needs to make Andy the star, though. Andy needs to be the total star in the next movie. Here, Nika was the star, but Andy was like the side player, but he had the best scenes. But yeah, Andy got all the best scenes. Yeah, sorry about that little jump cut right there. I had to... Somebody was at the door. But yeah, so Andy got all the best scenes. Whenever they get to the next movie, then you just make Andy the star. Yeah, all in all, pretty good movie. I'd give it 3.5 stars out of 4. It was a pretty good watch. I'd highly recommend it. It's my 3rd favorite Chucky film. After my 1st favorite is the original, then Bride, and then this film. These are my top 3. So I'll see you guys again with the next review.